Hey everyone. Yeah, so we've got a great painting tonight, not gonna lie. A few months ago when Emma painted this, I said it's one of my favorites. Emma's been rocking it with the Michael's paint nights lately, and this one's really, really cute. I told her not to get scared while she's painting it. It's a haunted house. That was dumb. But anyways, welcome in. I hope you guys have a fun time. If you guys have any questions throughout the night, you can enter the chat, and I'll be trying to keep up there. Emma's going to go as slow as possible, but just remember, you can always look back at the recording later. Michael's will send it out. So if you want to view this one and kind of work through your painting kind of loosely and go back, that's a great way to do it, especially if you're kind of new to painting. So I'll go ahead and hand it off to Emma.
Awesome. Thanks, Dylan. So like Dylan said, thank you guys so much for tuning in with us tonight. It's always such a pleasure to paint with you all. Tonight, like Dylan said, we're going to be painting House on the Hill, which is a very Halloween-inspired painting. We're going to be using, like always, our PROMOFAI kit with beautiful FolkArt acrylic paint and our special guest star, some Dragonfly Glaze, and I'll show you guys how to use that. But yeah, we're going to have a really fun time tonight. And like Dylan said, we're going to do it in just about an hour, and we have a lot to go through. So if you're having trouble catching up, if my pace is a little bit too quick for you, this is being recorded, so it's going to live on Michael's YouTube page and on their community classroom page. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started, you guys. So we're going to be using that PROMOFAI kit. So the great thing about the kit is that if you go ahead and purchase that kit, then you will be ready to paint every single paint night, Monday night paint night that Plaid does with Michael's from here on out, because we only use colors from that kit. But if you don't have that kit and you're just painting along with your own FolkArt colors, then tonight we're going to be using FolkArt Violet Pansy, True Blue, Wicker White, and Licorice. And then our Dragonfly Glaze color is going to be Violet, Blue, Green, Shift. So let's go ahead and get started. So we're going to be using those paints, and we're also going to be using a 10 by 10 inch canvas. A variety of flat brushes. I think we called out like the Craftsmart Artist Variety Brush set. That's usually the one that we use. It's a great set. And a piece of white chalk. So let's get started, you guys. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and load some True Blue onto our palette. And some white. Okay, now that we've done that, we are going to take a little bit of our True Blue, and we are going to, a little bit, about this much of our True Blue, and then a lot of our white, and we're going to mix those two colors together, looking for a really pretty light blue color. So I would say that the ratio that we're looking for is about 1 part True Blue to 3 parts white. Maybe a little bit more of that True Blue. That should be perfect. Okay, so once you've gone ahead and done that, we are going to find the center of our canvas. So the center of our canvas is right about here. I don't want you to take your ruler out or anything. We're just going to eyeball it. So we're going to find the center of our canvas, and then we're going to move it up about 1/2 inch or so, maybe like 3/4 of an inch. And that's going to be our center of our sky. So that's where our moon is going to live. So that's where we're going to start painting a big, not big, but a round circle a little bit above the dead center of our painting. Just like that. And all I'm doing to make that circle is I'm holding my brush perpendicular to my canvas, and I'm making a big swoop. What is that, clockwise, and then a big swoop counterclockwise until we have a little circle just like that. All righty. So that was pretty simple. I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush. dry it off with some paper towels. I'm actually going to introduce a little bit more of True Blue to my palette here. And now we are going to follow that circle that we just painted with our True Blue. So we're just going to follow the outline of that. We're not blending these two colors together. Right now, we are just establishing the base colors of our night sky. So I'm going slowly around my circle because I want to still keep it in that pretty circular shape. But we're going to go about 2 inches or so away from our center circle. Okay, so once you've done that, we're going to go ahead and rinse our brush again. And we're just working with like a 1/4 inch flat brush. Whatever flat brush you feel comfortable making those size circles with tonight will work just fine. I'm going to dry my brush. And now onto our palette, we're going to introduce some of our beautiful violet pansy. Right here. And same as we did with our True Blue, we're going to follow that circle again with our violet pansy and make about a 2-inch circle surrounding our True Blue circle. And we're not blending those colors together. We're just getting the base colors down. I'm going to go out a little further. So our violet pansy color is going to end up going a little bit off of our canvas, which is to be expected. Okay, so we're not going to rinse our brush for this next step. We're going to take a little bit of that violet pansy. We're going to bring it down here. And same as before, we're going to take some of that white and we are going to mix it with our dark purple violet pansy to make a softer purple color, just like we did with the blue in the beginning. Purple. And we're going to mix that up until it's really well incorporated and we get a beautiful light purple color. Okay, so now what we're going to do is we're pretty much just going to fill in all of the white space that we see on our canvas right now with that light purple. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush. And now what we're going to do is we are going to start to work to blend these colors together. And I'm going to show you guys how. So after we rinse our brush, we're going to go ahead and make sure it's nice and dry. And we're going to do a blending technique that involves double loading our brush. So to do that, what we're going to do is we're going to dip one side of our brush. So this side in one color and this side in another color, so that when we mark and make brush strokes with our brush onto our painting, both colors are going to be placed at the same time, and they're going to start to create a really beautiful soft blend. So on this side of our paintbrush, we're going to dip our brush into some of that light blue color. Then on the opposite side, we are going to dip it into our dark blue, true blue color. So your paintbrush should look like mine. Okay. And so touching down, we're going to make sure the light blue side is touching the light blue circle and that the dark blue side is touching the dark blue ring. So we're going to touch down and make a circle. And we're just going to keep kind of going around and around until these colors start to blend together. And so one thing that I want you guys to know about this technique, if you feel like your brush starts to drag a little bit, and mine kind of is, you can always dip your brush into some clean water. And thankfully our water isn't too dirty yet because we're really working with some purple and blue cool tones. So now you can see your brush won't drag as much and it'll just glide across your canvas really easily. And you can go back and forth if you're, if you feel it's uncomfortable to move your arm in a continuous circular motion, that's okay. As long as the side that's light blue stays on the light blue circle and the side that's dark blue stays on the dark blue side. So once your colors are nice and blended, which I feel like mine are, I'm happy with how that looks, you can go ahead and rinse your brush. And we are going to continue to do that same technique all the way to the outside rings. So next up, we're going to dip one side of our brush in our true blue and the other side in our violet pansy. One true blue, one violet pansy. Okay, and we're going to keep doing that same process, blending those two colors together. And as our circles get a little bit bigger, maybe you'll notice that you need to add a little bit more paint onto your brush because you're running out of paint or your paint is starting to drag, and that's okay. You can absolutely do that. I'm actually going to introduce a little bit more violet pansy onto my palette. And I'm just going to keep loading my brush with paint as it starts to really drag and I run out of paint. Dip it in a little bit of my water. Okay, so once you are happy with that blend, I'm happy with my blend. I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush. And another great thing about this technique is that when you first apply that base color down and you're not really happy with the opacity of the paint and you want to give it another coat, you don't really have to worry about giving it a second coat just yet, because when we do that double loading brush technique, you really are kind of applying a second coat. And so you'll see that the opacity of your paint gets a lot richer and there's a lot more hide. Okay, so next we are going to blend our violet pansy with our light lavender color that we mixed earlier. Okay, I'm going to fill in some of these spots with my soft lavender color, just like that. And we are done with our night sky. So I'm going to go ahead and rinse my brush for the last time in quite a while. And I'm actually going to take out my blow dryer and go ahead and blow dry this to lock it in place really quick. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and add a little bit more of my white to my palette. We're going to go ahead and paint our moon. So I'm going to take my number 8 flat, it's just a tiny little flat brush. I'm going to dip it into my Wicker white, and right in the center of our light blue color, starting at the top of where I want my circle to be, I'm going to touch down there. I'm going to make one swoop this way. And then I'm going to mirror that same motion on the other side and make one swoop this way. And then I'm going to kind of go back and round it out. And fill it in. Just like that. And we have our moon. So I'm going to rinse my brush and take my blow dryer again and just hit our moon with the blow dryer, because before this next step, we're going to want our painting to be pretty dry. Okay, it feels pretty dry to me. So now, drum roll please, is when we're going to introduce our special guest paint of the night. So we're going to be using some FolkArt Dragonfly Glaze. So this is a really fun paint that we have in our FolkArt line. It actually works as a top coat. So we love to add it to painted vases, to clear glass. And then we also, like you're going to see us do tonight, we like to add it to beautiful paintings for that a little extra sparkle and shimmer. So it's a really beautiful translucent glaze. Ooh, I got to take the seal off. And so you'll see that once you brush it onto your painting, it's going to be a little bit milky, but once it dries totally clear, and you are left with that beautiful shimmer, that beautiful iridescence that really changes colors in the light. It's really beautiful. So going to take my 1-inch flat brush, I'm going to dip it into my Dragonfly Glaze, and I'm just going to brush it onto the whole entire canvas, every single spot. And you can already see, even though it's wet, you can see it's really beautiful iridescent shimmer. And I'm just making big, wide, consistent brush strokes. That is the best way to apply the Dragonfly Glaze. Okay, and so same thing as any traditional acrylic paint, it's water-based and non-toxic. So the way to clean your brush after using your Dragonfly Glaze, you can just go ahead and stick it in your water basin with all your other brushes. So now that we have applied our Dragonfly Glaze to our painting, I'm going to go ahead and take my blow dryer out again and go ahead and dry this. Okay, you guys. So I'm going to wait a couple seconds for my Dragonfly Glaze to cure a little bit. Do we have any questions, Dylan?
No, I think everybody's painting along. We had one comment, you can absolutely use a larger brush to apply your Dragonfly Glaze.
Mhm.
Emma was just using
Definitely.
what we had here.
Okay, great. So for the next part of our painting tonight, we are going to be using a piece of white chalk. And that's because whenever I'm sketching things in my paintings, it's always nice to use something that's not permanent, obviously, that you can just wipe off with a damp cloth. I prefer to use white chalk as opposed to a pencil because sometimes when you try to erase your pencil lines, they don't quite erase all the way, and then you end up having to paint over things. So white chalk is really easy to remove. So that's why I like to use it in my painting. So we're going to want to do that because we're going to do a little bit of sketching tonight. And I will, if you are not the best at drawing, please do not fear. I will take you step by step. It's just a bunch of shapes. That's all drawing is. And that's especially what our drawing is tonight. So I'm going to walk you through it just shape by shape until you have your very own haunted house. So the first thing we're going to do is I'm going to actually move my painting in a little bit so that you guys can see the finished one so that we all know what we're doing. So the first thing we're going to do is draw our horizon line. So we're going to start about a little over an inch on this side with our white chalk. And we're kind of going on a hill. I mean, this is house on a hill. So our horizon line goes all the way, like kind of to there. All right. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to kind of draw like a catty corner square, topsy-turvy kind of, where the bottom of the square is a little bit shorter than the top of our square, kind of going at an angle like this. So we're going to start the first part of our square here and kind of go up like that. And then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. You know what? Maybe that my angle is even a little bit too sharp. So I'm going to make it a little less sharp, just like that. And that's the reason we're using chalk, you guys. Because, you know, everybody makes mistakes. Okay, so now we're going to make our second line right about there. And come down like that. Okay, so so this next line that we're going to make, now we're going to make kind of a triangle. This is going to be the roof of the lower level of our house. We're going to intersect our moon. So kind of starting right here, I'm going to mark that little dot so that you guys can see. That's going to be the top of our triangle. So we're going to start there. We're going to come down like this, and we're going to go a little bit past our topsy-turvy square. And we're going to mark it off here. And then we're going to follow that triangle coming back down to create that perfect right angle triangle, just like that. Okay. So now we're going to make the rest of our roof. So it's just going to be a straight line, a little bit above our moon, a straight line to here. And we're going to continue it a little bit further than our square there. And we're going to come down like that. Okay, so now we're going to make the same kind of basic shape that we did for the bottom section of our house, but we're going to make it smaller, and it's going to be up here. So we're going to make one line coming up like this, a little bit of an angled line. We're going to mirror that like this. Now we're going to make another triangle like this for the roof of our house. And kind of coming at an angle, we're going to make a little rectangle shape like this. That's going to be our chimney. and another rectangle on top of there. Just like that, super simple. So now the next thing we're going to do is we are going to sketch out some space for our windows. So one window there. And another window there. Now we're going to make kind of arch shape on the top part of our haunted house like that. And then in our roof, we're going to go ahead and just draw a circle. Just like that. So once you've gone ahead and done that, we're going to put our chalk down for a second. Now we are going to start painting again. So take out your black paint, load it onto your palette. And I'm going to take my small flat brush again. So this is a number 10 flat brush, just a small flat brush. Going to dip it in my black here. And we're going to go ahead and fill in our shapes that we just drew. And I'll keep our finished painting right here for you guys to reference, but also you can follow along with me. I'm going to go ahead and fill in our triangle roof. Just following those chalk lines, you guys. But we do want to make sure that we leave our windows open. So we're leaving our arch open, we're leaving our circle open, and we're leaving our two kind of trapezoid shaped windows open as well. Going to go ahead and follow our circle here. So we get that nice circle shape for our window. Okay, we filled in the basic outline of our haunted house, you guys. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our black paint and we're going to go ahead and fill in that horizon line. So that first line that we drew with our chalk. And after you've done that, you can go ahead and fill in the bottom portion of your painting with black. Okay, so once we've gone ahead and done that, we are going to paint our tree that's off to the side here. So if you want to, you can take out your chalk and kind of sketch the base of the tree if you want, but I have faith in all of you and I think that you can follow along with me and do this tree. So we're gonna load our brush with some more black paint. I'm gonna keep going with this number 10 flat brush. And we're gonna start a little bit above our moon, right about here, a little bit above our moon. I'm going to touch down with my brush and I'm going to make kind of a crooked squiggle. I'm going to load up my brush with more paint if I need it, making a crooked squiggle just like that. After you've made your kind of crooked squiggle, I want the base of my tree to be a little bit wider than the top of my tree. So I'm just going to widen it out a little bit. Just like that, okay? So now holding my brush perpendicularly, just like that. So we're not using, we're not holding our brush to the side, we're holding it up and down.
The chisel edge.
Right. We're gonna start at the top of our tree. And I'm gonna make another kind of squiggly line coming up to the top. And as we do that, I want to apply less pressure to my brush as we're approaching the top of the branch. So if you want to practice that on your palette, so I'm applying a little bit more pressure in the beginning and then less pressure towards the end. And as we do that, you're going to see that your line becomes a lot thinner. So as we're kind of squiggling, I'm applying more pressure, and then as I'm finishing my squiggle, it gets a little bit thinner like that. So that's how we're going to continue painting in our branches like that. So we're going to start with some of these base branches. So some thicker branches. I'm going to make kind of a little wishbone shape at the very top. Then once we've done that, we can kind of come out a little bit with some smaller branches, reloading your brush as you want to. I'm going to make one branch out here, kind of hovering above our moon. And then one more wider branch coming off from down here and going off of our canvas.
And as you're doing that, Emma, we had some concern about not having a pattern for this painting, but as you can see, this is a really organic design, and you can see even Emma's two samples, her first one is going to look a little bit different from the one that she's doing tonight, and that kind of adds to the whole haunted house vibe. So it's totally okay if your house is a little bit different, if your tree's a little bit different.
Absolutely. By the end, we're going to have a very quirky, a very whimsical haunted house painting. So the more different that yours looks from mine, probably the better. The more whimsical, the quirkier, the better. Okay, so we're done making our wider branches. So we're going to keep making just tinier little branches with our flat brush coming off of those wider branches. And we're going to have some intersecting other branches. by the end, we're gonna have a crooked, gnarled, very haunted looking tree. I hope you don't get too scared, Dylan.
Super spooky. That dragonfly glaze gets me every time.
Ooh. This is probably my favorite part of the painting, just painting these little branches coming off of every which way from our tree. It's kind of relaxing.
And this is kind of nice, you know, like we do a lot of really detailed paintings with our Michaels classes, but this one's kind of fun because it's just the one color, you know?
Yeah, it's a
Not to
little bit
worry-
more graphic.
Right. Like it's all shadows. So, you know, like the pumpkins are in shadow and your little bats, everything, and the tree is all a shadow. So it's really pretty forgiving.
Totally. All right, where do I need more? Okay, I think I'm pleased. So last thing we have to do, I'm a little too ahead of myself. Now we're gonna paint some pumpkins. So our pumpkins are really simple again. They're circles and ovals. So starting, let's do our first pumpkin right here. We're gonna start at where we want the top of our pumpkin to be, holding our brush perpendicular. I'm gonna make a counterclockwise swoop down, just like that, little comma stroke. And then I'm gonna mirror that again on the other side. Swoop down and then fill that in. And there's our first pumpkin, folks. And now I'm just kind of dab, 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 holding my brush perpendicular to make that stem. So I'll show you guys again how I do it. So I'm gonna make this one a little bit closer to our horizon line. So a little bit shorter. One stroke there, and then mirror that one stroke there. Fill it in, dab, dab, dab. That's how simple it is. So we're gonna keep making our pumpkins.
Now, as you're doing that, we had a good comment just now that someone thought that those were little gravestones.
Oh,
And
cute.
that is a great idea. Yeah, I guess, you know, if you look really close, they have little stems, but you could kind of make them look a little bit more gravestone-y if you wanted to as well, and have maybe like a skeleton hand or something coming out.
Yeah, totally. That's a great idea. I wish I had thought of it first, or else these would have been gravestones. That's a great idea. So real quick, as you see, some of our pumpkins are not touching each other, but some of our pumpkins are kind of overlapping, making it look like the pumpkin patch is overflowing and it's getting out of control. And there's different sorts of pumpkins and they're all touching each other. So you can really make that choice, whether you want your pumpkins to touch like these are right here, or if you want them to be a little separate like that. It's really just a style choice. So maybe we'll have one kind of coming behind the house like that. And I want to have a couple on the other side of my tree too. One coming down there, one coming down there.
That's a good idea too. You could do a Casper, a little ghost.
Oh, adorable.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are so creative. I guess that's why you're on a painting class though, huh?
Yep.
So you're probably all pretty creative.
Oh, we have a witch. That's a great idea too.
Oh, that's
You did,
cute.
like, now Emma's about to do the bats, I think, but if you did a witch going across the moon, that would be really cool.
That's adorable. I love that. Okay, I'm gonna rinse my brush really quick, you guys. And I'm gonna go ahead and take a smaller flat brush. Which one do I want to go for? I'm gonna take my number 2 flat. I'm gonna dip it in my black. And we're gonna go ahead and paint this little cat that's in our archway here. So all it is it's kind of like we're doing the base of a really tall pumpkin. So we're gonna start at, we're gonna make like a little oval shape like this. So we're gonna kind of make a little arch like that. So go ahead and make that arch.
Kind of like you were doing the pumpkins.
Yeah, exactly. Like I was doing the pumpkins. And then on top of that arch, we're gonna go ahead and make a little circle. Like that. Now, kind of like our little pumpkin stems, but a little bit more like tiny little triangles. We're gonna paint cat ears. So how I'm gonna do that is I'll show it a little bit bigger on my palette to show you guys what type of brush stroke I'm doing, but I'm holding my brush perpendicular like that, coming down one side, and then at the top, I'm coming down the other side, kind of like another arch, but very tiny. And that's gonna make those little cat ears. Just like that. And kind of similarly to how we made the branches coming from our tree, we're gonna make our little cattail with just a little squiggly line, a little thicker at the base of the tail and a little thinner at the top of the tail, just like that. Okay, so now what we're gonna do before I forget, because I almost did forget, we're gonna make the lines in our windows. What are those called? Panes. So I'm gonna make one line here, one line intersecting it like that for our top window. And same goes for the bottom windows. I'm gonna make two lines kind of coming in like this, like our windows in our house did. Two lines like that. And I'm gonna do that again on our other window. Okay. Then I'm gonna intersect those lines, make two more lines like this and like that. Okay, so a little bit more paint on my brush. So now we're gonna make some bats. So it's gonna be kind of like a loose V. So we're gonna come in like that, and we're gonna come in like that on the other side. So if you've ever painted some very stylistic birds before on a horizon line, it's gonna be just like that.
Beachy
And then
birds.
we're gonna, what'd you say?
Some beachy birds.
Yeah, some beachy birds. We're gonna do that. And then at the end, I'm gonna show you guys how to make them a little bit more bat-like. So we're gonna make those kind of floppy V's. I like to paint some in our moon, but really you guys should have fun with this part. You can paint these bats wherever you would like bats to be flying in your painting. You can tell a story, like maybe some are coming out of the chimney and they're being summoned, beckoned to the moon.
And then we had a question. Are you loading your brush pretty heavy for the pumpkins and the cat with your black paint?
That's a great question. So kind of just a moderate amount of loading my brush. And like, you know, you can always load more paint onto your brush, but you can't really load less. So see what works for you and see how you get a really good feel of how much paint you want there to be on your brush when you're making those arches. I used like a moderate amount of paint on my brush.
Yeah, I can see if you guys pay attention, Emma kind of dips in and then touches down to make sure she doesn't have a big blob of paint on there.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so if this is my bird, I'm painting it on my palette because they're so teeny tiny. I want you guys to be able to get a good view. I want to make it a little bit bigger. So we're going to make a bird like we've been doing, that floppy V. And then kind of halfway through, we're going to make little lines that go out. And that makes it look very bat-like. That's the secret. So I'm going to go ahead and do that to all of my little birds. I'm going to make those two little marks on their wings to give the illusion that these are not birds. They're actually very spooky bats. Okay, so you guys, that's all the black that we have to do. So just to really make sure, I am going to, first of all, rinse this brush because we're going to use this again for our highlights. But I'm going to go ahead and take my blow dryer to make sure that our painting is really nice and dry and lock it in place. Okay, so guys, if you went ahead and sketched out your haunted house with chalk like I did, now's a good time to remove some of that chalk so that when we put the finishing touches on our painting, it looks beautiful and we're happy with it. We don't see any chalk lines that make it look a little unfinished. So I'm just going to take a paper towel. It doesn't even have to be damp. It can be, I like to use a dry paper towel and just go over some of those really visible chalk lines and just rub some of that chalk away. So that's why I want to make sure that our painting is nice and dry so that when we are removing our chalk, we're not smearing any of our beautiful painting. Okay, so I'm going to take some of my white. I'm actually going to just reload some white because I think that white is a little bit dry. We don't need a whole lot. And we are going to paint some of the, why can't I think tonight? We're going to paint some of the highlights of our painting tonight. And we want to keep in mind that for this painting, the light source is coming from the moon. So the moon is lighting up all of our haunted house. And because of that, all of our highlights are going to be facing towards the moon. So for example, we're not going to have a highlight on this side of the house because that's facing away from the moon. We're only going to have highlights on this side of the house, all the things that are facing the moon. So kind of like this. So I'm going to take a small flat brush, but you could take a liner brush, a round brush, anything that you feel comfortable making tiny brush strokes with, thin brush strokes with, that's what you should use. I'm going to dip it into my white and we're just going to make some thin little lines that are going to be the highlights in our painting. And I'm keeping in mind, so the things that are really protruding out. So like the most far right side of my tree, that's going to be the thing that's being illuminated from the moon. The things on the far right side, on the left side of my moon, and the things on the far left side, on the right side of my moon. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So just making those little highlights, making them on the roof, on the side of our house here and here. And for some of these black silhouettes that are kind of overlapping, I like to take this time when I'm applying my highlights to show that they are separate in the real world. So, you know, our pumpkin is kind of going into our house. I'm going to make a little highlight line to show that the house is separate from the pumpkin and it's not just one big blob. Adding little tiny comma strokes on our pumpkins. All of our highlights facing the moon. Like so. And with that, you guys, I think we are done. This has been House on a Hill. So thank you guys so much for painting along with us tonight. Before we go, I have a couple things that I want you guys to know about. So we do one of these paint nights every Monday night at 8 o'clock Eastern time on michaels.com under their community classroom page. Tonight we did House on a Hill, but we have lots of fun fall and Halloween inspired paintings all throughout this month and a lot of great seasonal paintings throughout the rest of the year, really. So next week, Chris Williams will be in the studio with us and she will be teaching us all how to paint 2 pumpkins and a crow. Chris is a super, super talented painter. So you'll want to be sure to tune in for next week's painting. same time, same place, just next Monday. So that will be a really great class. You don't want to miss that. For other really great painting resources and tutorials and classes, make sure to keep checking out the Michael's Community Classroom page. If you decided to paint along with us tonight and you want to post your creations on social media, make sure to hashtag Make It With Michaels and Plaid Crafts. We're always looking under those hashtags, and we definitely want to see what you're painting at home. Am I missing anything else, Dylan?
No, I think everybody just wants you to hold up your painting just for one last view there. Oh yeah, show off that dragonfly glaze. Yeah, there you
Our
go.
finished dragonfly, very spooky.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you guys so much.
Yeah, thank you guys so much, and we will see you next time. Bye, guys.